All right. Hello, everyone. We have people here. Okay, I guess we'll wait for another 5 minutes for people to join in case we have a few late show up.
Hello, Benjamin.
Okay, still waiting for people to join. It's been 3 minutes. All right, we've waited for 5 minutes. I think we can start the session now. So, hey everyone, and welcome to the Flutter series. This is session 2, and we are going to be covering a few more Flutter basics and going through the next two Qwiklabs. If you haven't seen our first video already, you can do so via the link provided below, or just check our GDSC at Harriet Watt channel. GDSC here stands for Google Developer Student Club. And yeah, welcome everyone, and we're going to get started. So, I'm Fahim. I'm a year 4 computer science student specializing in data science. And this is Vishan. I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Vishan. I'm also a computer science student and I'm specializing in data science.
Okay, so the agenda for today is going to be the lab 2 and 3. So we're going to start with lab 2 and 3, starting at 2 o'clock to 2:40. Sean's going to be covering the first lab with that's going to cover Flutter Startup, and it's a namer, so generally a list of infinite names, and trying to work with different widgets and making your first application essentially. And the second lab is going to be with me. I'm going to be doing the material components for Flutter Basics, and followed by a Q&A session at the end, towards the end of the session, the last 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, so I guess let's start with our first part of this live session today with lab 2, and Vishan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I get the screen switch, please? Okay, cool. So, hi everyone. This is going to be the first lab. So, the first lab for today, which is actually the second lab from the Flutter Development Quest. So, what it is, it's basically a name generating app. So, this is what it's going to look like, the final version. All it is, it's basically just a name generator with an infinite scrolling effect. So you can keep scrolling and there'll always be a word generated for you to see. So that's pretty much what the app is. So what you're going to learn from today's session, so you're going to build a Flutter app that looks natural in iOS, Android, and the web. Then you'll have a basic structure for a Flutter app. You'll also be utilizing packages, which is something we talked about last time. Utilizing the hot reload feature to see all your updates while you're developing. How to implement stateful widgets, which is something new, and obviously the infinite list view effect that we'll also be covering. Some prerequisites are Flutter and Dart, but obviously because we're learning this together, this is something you'll be fine with learning on the go. So setting up the lab, this should be the same for every lab you do. It's basically telling you that you're under a time limit with the resources. In this case, we have an hour to do it, and that it starts the second we press the button. Yeah. So let's begin. So we're going to press the Start Lab button to begin. We are going to need a subscription. Again, the instructions about how to do this were mentioned in the last week's session, and because the month is coming to the end, there will be a new setup process. We will make a video demonstrating how you go about doing that. So yeah, always use a subscription. Let's start. And we're basically going to get two links. So one's going to give us the browser IDE that's done by Google, and then a live server to pretty much debug our app while we're programming. So I'm going to just open up the IDE. Should hold up. Okay, cool. Give that a second. All right. Now that the IDE is up, we can move on. All right. So now we're going to create the project. So in this section, we're going to create a template Flutter application for the web using the built-in terminal. So user account, pre-provision, Flutter and Dart extensions are preloaded. They clone the code directly to the machine. For this lab, we're not going to be cloning any base code. Everything that we need to add is part of the lab, but for the future labs, you'll have to get starter code by just cloning. That'll also be described throughout the lab. So let's open up a terminal and create a project. So what we have to do is just press the hamburger icon over here, and then choose terminal and new terminal. We'll let that load up. Once we're there, we can use the Flutter create command and then give a project name. So this is how you start any Flutter project. That's just pretty much going to set up all the files that you need. And then from there, we're just going to move to that directory by using the change directory command. And then we can start running like functions to run the code. So Let me just type Flutter create start. What do they call it? Start. Okay. So start namer. Oops. Close the room. You can see all the files being created for the new project. After that, we can move into that directory. I'm just going to copy the command. I'm in that directory. All right. So now that we've done that, we can start exploring the basic app that they provide with any Flutter project. So to do that, we have to just open up the code in the IDE. So we just click the Project Explorer button over here, and then open a folder. That's just going to give us the current cloud instance directory. And as we can see, we've made the new app using the Flutter create command. We're just going to click that and just click OK. So that's going to open up that folder. There you go. That's all the Flutter files that it generated. And all the content that we need to edit will basically be in the lib folder. And that's where all your Flutter classes tend to be, and where they should be. So from there, use the OK button. All right. Confirm the on-screen notification to update packages and editor settings. That was at the bottom. OK, that's fine. And then, yeah, confirm the on-screen. And then, OK, from there, we can run the code. So now we're going to set up the browser debugger. So just going to copy that, paste that here. It shouldn't work right now because we haven't started up with the terminal on the Flutter IDE. So all we need to do is just open up the terminal. To start up the web server, we just have to use this command, so FWR. Open up the terminal. If I just type FWR, you can see it's waiting for the connection. Just give that a moment to load up. So then, yeah, so this is what, and basically every time you create a Flutter project for the first time, you're always going to get this starter app, which is basically a counter app. So you just press this button, it updates like a counter variable. This is just a way to see if your settings and everything are just working. That way you know your project is working. So once you start developing, you won't have any issues. So the server is connected, and from there we can either do a hot reload or a hot reset by just pressing R or capital R. So I'm just going to do a hot reload. Just refresh this browser. And you can see the debugger is set up. Let's just wait for the app to load. There you go. So this is the counter app. This is always there with any Flutter project when you create. So all you do is just press this button. That way, and so now you can see that your app is working and that all the settings are fine. So moving on. So this is the kind of what we're going to be covering today. So what it consists of is basically a material app. So material is basically a visual design language that's a standard on mobile and the web. So Flutter offers a rich set of material widgets, and material design is a design standard that was developed by Google. You can also use like Cupertino design, which is obviously intended for more Apple products. Then from there, we're going to use so then it's just the main arrow. So this is like an inline function, something like in JavaScript. So instead of so what they're trying to say is over here, instead of defining it using this scope, we can basically just use an inline function to run the app. That's fine. Then we're going to be talking about stateless widgets, which we'll talk about a little later. A scaffold widget, which is basically the template. So in material design, any new screen you implement would basically be a scaffold. And the scaffold kind of gives you the basic structure that you need. So it includes like an app bar, which is the blue part with the Flutter demo homepage, and then a body element, which is where you'd add all your content. From there as well, then the widget's main job is to provide a build method to describe how the display widget. Okay, that's fine. The body of the example consists of a center widget, right? So this is just talking about the demo app. That's fine. That's all we need. Okay. So now let's add the package. So for the name generator, we're going to use a package called English Words. It basically has like a list of certain infinite words, and it's basically just a generator that you can use with any of your projects. So to do that, from last time we talked about how you can add dependencies, and that's in this pubsec file. So we're going to just add this dependency to that. So let's just do that. So in the editor, open the PubSpec file. Okay, that's over here. Just gonna make this a little smaller. From there, we're gonna add the English words dependency. So just gonna copy that command, and we're gonna add it here. Right. So just gonna make sure the indent is fine. So just to quickly explain, so this is basically the name of the package and the current version. So you use the caret icon to just show that you want to add any version that's 4.0 and above. And just for an example, so here, for example, the SDK. So the version is anything that's greater than 2.12 but less than 3.0. So that's how you can kind of give like specific versions for your app. From there, let's go to the main file and delete the entire code base and replace it with this code. So again, with any project, you're always going to get this counter app, but we don't really have to use it, so we're just going to replace it. So in this case, I've already given the code. Just going to replace it. Just going to set that up. This it's fine. Okay, give that a second, and we should. Yeah. So right now, as you can see, it's not really detecting the package, but we just need to save the PubSpec file. So just Control S. As you can see, now it's running Flutter pub get, which is another function that kind of updates your dependencies when you add something. And now if we come back to our main file, you can see the error is gone. Now it recognizes this package as English words. And it's even imported for us. Oh, and again, the material design components that we're using, it's also automatically imported that by default. So to just break down what the basic app is, we're just running a stateless widget. Again, we'll come back to what stateless and stateful widgets are a little bit later. But all it's doing right now is just showing the title as like welcome to Flutter, and it's just putting some text in the middle with the random word that we want. So it's just calling a random word using the package. It's called word pair. You don't need to really understand how this is working since it's more like about the package. But all it's doing is just calling like one of its methods to create a word pair. It consists of 2 strings, and it just picks a random one and just returns it. So if you want to see this, right now, the debugger still has the old app, the basic app that comes with any project. But just to update that, we're just going to click for reload here. We're pressing around the keyboard, and then just refresh the browser. And there you go. So now this is the new app that we added, the new code. And you can see that it's just made like a random word down file. It's totally random, so it's fine. All right, so then from there, as you can see, the original code has been replaced. The new application will present a new random word each time it's run. So just to show that, I'm just going to reload it and reload the browser here. That should generate a new word. Again, we're going to make this app a little bit more dynamic. So for now, it's just every time you reload, it just calls a new word. So you can now it says sinkhole. So let's go back. So if we just run the code again, we did that. Showed a hot reload. So as you can see, it's pretty simple. The second you want to see changes, all you have to do is just press R on your keyboard using the reload function. And if you want to make more specific changes that require proper restart of your app, you just put like a capital R, and that kind of like just completely restarts the debug menu. So stateful widgets. So now remember that because we're using a stateless widget here, none of its data is dynamic. Like whatever it's set to, the widget doesn't know how to redraw itself to show a new state. That's when stateful widgets come in handy. So they're pretty much dynamic, and every time you make a change, the framework is able to update the current state of the entire widget to the new content that has to be displayed. So let's just break it down. Widgets are immutable, meaning that their properties can't change. These are the stateless widgets. But here, stateful widgets maintain state that might change during the lifetime of the widget. Implementing stateful widget requires at least 2 classes. We'll break this down, which is a stateful widget that creates an instance of a state class, a stateful widget object itself, immutable, and that can be thrown away and regenerated by the state object as it persists over the lifetime of the widget. So in the editor, we're going to open the main file. At the bottom of the file, add the following code. So this is just the structure of a stateful widget. I'm just going to add that. Let me make it smaller. Up here. So just to quickly break down what this is. So this is how you go about designing a stateful widget class. So what you do is you have to create like a random state. So this is the content that will be consistent throughout the widget. But then when you extend the stateful widget, you have to override its create state function, which returns a state, which is what this part is. So this is the part that's going to be mutable and that can be changed over time. And the framework will pretty much call the create state function to do that. And just to show that none of this stuff is like pre-coded, for an easier way to build this, you can just type st. Yeah. So that should give you like Flutter stateful or stateless. So you can pretty much get the template code, like automatically generate it and then give a name. And there you go. So that's one way of doing it. So as you can see, it's the same thing. This is just a quicker way of doing it. It's kind of like emit from HTML. So it does, yeah. So that's pretty much how you get the template code for stateless widget. And it's the same thing every time. From there, you can add the content that you specifically want to see on your widget screen. That'll be here. So what's happening is basically just a build function that does the same thing. It gets a random word pair from the English words package and just stores that as a text widget, and which gets returned. So from there, I'm going to delete the following lines. So word pair of random and replace it with random word.
Hi guys, I think there's some technical difficulty. There's probably some lag that he's facing right now, so I think we'll rejoin in a bit. I think we'll ask him to rejoin and be back. Okay, I can share my screen in the meantime. Yeah. Let's play some elevator music. Let's wait for him to rejoin in the meantime then.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better, much better.
Did it freeze?
No, you started talking in like a very electronic voice. Like in the middle, there was a lot of disturbance.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, yeah, handing it over to you again.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know.
Yeah, no problem, no problem.
Okay, can you see the window now? Share my screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool, right? Okay, I'm just gonna check. Is it frozen again? Or is it?
No, we can see it. We can see it.
Okay, it's moving, right? Okay, it's not updating on my second screen. All right, so okay, where were we? Right, we were talking about the Listview, right? Yeah. So even though we are using a stateful widget right now, the code is still designed in a way that every time you need to refresh, the text gets updated on the application. So we need to create in a dynamic way now, and that's where we're going to use the list view. So the list view, in this case, we're going to expand the random word state class to generate and display a list of words. As the user scrolls, the list displayed is going to grow infinitely, and we're going to use the list view to do that. So the list view provides a builder property called item builder. So that's one way you can go about building items dynamically. And it has two parameters passed, which is the build context, which is the current screen. So think of context as like a this keyword from Java. And then you need to give a row iterator, which is like just an index, so the current index that you're on in the list view, because the list view is basically like a list, and that starts at 0. So yeah. And the model allows the suggestion list to continue growing as the user scrolls. So what we're going to do now, so we're going to start editing the main file. So add the new lines mark to the random word state. So we're going to add one list. So this is the list that's going to store all the word pairs. And we're just going to store a text style property as a variable as well. Just another thing, the underscores, it's not actually a naming convention, it's actually an identifier. So if anyone knows like private, public, and protected from the Java, for example, the underscore is pretty much like a private identifier. So I'm just going to copy this. It's going to be added. I'm going to add that. Please be the state. Okay. So just going to add that here. From there, so I explain what that is. So this is probably the main builder. So I'm just going to copy this and I'll explain what it's doing from the code editor itself. So that needs to, oh, that's just a function, is it? Okay. Okay. So inside the class itself, class, just pop it there. All right. So what this function does, it basically kind of implements the Listview Builder, the dynamic builder. So, but there's another way to build the Listview. So I'll just quickly just break this away, just to show that. So if I just do this, let's comment it out real quick. Oops. So let's say so there's two ways. So the one way is to use the builder, right? But let's say you already have a list of items that you want to show. You can just pretty much change its children property. So that basically takes a list of items that you've already built that you want to demonstrate. But in our case, because we want to create the dynamic effect, we're going to use the builder property. So if we go back, so you just call the builder, and from there you can provide the settings that you need to build your list view, dynamic list view. So what we're doing first is we're just adding padding. So if anyone's familiar with web development, you know what padding is. That's just going to, for the borders of the window, it's just going to push it in. No, it's going to create like 16 pixels worth of space on all sides. And from there, we're creating the item builder. So this is part of the dynamic building logic of a list view. So again, we pass the context and we're passing an index. So what we're doing here is when the index is odd, we want to put a divider. So just to show what the app looks like right here. So you can see these dividers, right? Just to make it look a little bit more neat while we're generating, we're going to add a divider. And one way about doing that is just checking the current index to make sure it's odd. We can check when it's even, but it looks neater when the divider is first. So then you just add a divider there. This is also another widget in Flutter. Then from there, we're going to use a integer division function operator in Flutter. So basically, like if it's 1, it's going to return 0. If it's 2, it's just going to be divided by 1. That's, no, sorry, what is it? How does it work? And for example, if you have 4, it's going to divide it by 2, that's 2. If it's 5, you divide by 2, that's 2.5, and that just returns the integer, which is 2. So this is one way to track the pairs. That way, when you're building, okay, I'll get to that. That's a little bit more sense once you explain this part. So what we're doing with that number is we're kind of comparing the index of the builder with the list, because we're always going to have a certain amount of words in our list, which is over here. But every time we've reached the end of the builder, we want to update this by adding more to it. So what we're checking is we're checking this index with the current size of that list. If it is, what we're going to do is just call like a list.addAll, and from there we're going to call an iterable. This is part of the English words package, and from there we're just going to take 10 from that iterable and add that to the list. From there, once we've added, then what happens at this point is the list is now greater than the list view. So that way, once we start building, there's always something to add. So once we've added more content to it, we can take that index and then just build it. So the builder function is not there, but we'll add that now. So that is this function here. I'm just going to. All right. So the build row function. Well, all this is doing is pretty much just implementing a list tile. So with the list view property, every item is a widget called a list tile. So one way to do that pretty easily in a more efficient way is to just define that as a separate function and then add the properties that you want. So what we're doing here is we're passing the word pair. Again, a word pair is just a set of 2 strings. We're passing it to our list tile and changing its text property to show that word as pastel case. So the first 2 letters are capital for each word. And then we're passing our style property, which was bigger font, which we defined over here, I believe. Instead of doing this, you can just do this instead. So just copy the text out, and you can just add this here. Just remove the colons. Sorry, capital Q. Yeah, text, and then you can just there's one way of doing it, but yeah, you can also define it the other way. So from there, once we're done with that, this is how your class should look like. So you have the build method for the state, then you have its build suggestions, which is the Listview Builder, and then a list item builder, which is just defined as a build row. From there, we can go to the body of the scaffold class, so the initial class over here. And we're just going to call, instead of calling random words, we're going to call, in the state class itself. So start name generator. How's that? It's over here, I think. I'm not mistaken. What is it? Override the random word state class build method with build suggestions. Yeah, so here. So that, just going to add build suggestions as my app. Did I miss something from the lab? Oops, I thought. Should be. Sorry for that. It should be random words. Okay. Just going to remove that. This is how it should be. And yeah, and then we should just replace the class build method with the random words class. So we've already done. So welcome to Flutter. Can I just replace the entire thing? Yeah. So just replace the entire build method. So just do this. So now we've replaced. So what we've done is, now that we've removed the old code that just had like a static word that wasn't dynamically changing, and now we've replaced it with our stateful widget. Well, so how we've done that is we basically called the initial stateful definition that we defined by calling just random words. That in itself is going to have a state, which the framework will call create state to trigger. Once a new state is generated, that's going to pretty much draw a list. And every time a new word comes, the framework is going to call create state to get the updated list and render a new builder. So that's how kind of like a stateful process works. And from there, I think the app is complete. So if we just let's do a hot restart this time, since we changed a lot of the code. So we'll just do capital R, recompile complete. Okay, we go. And if I come back, just refresh the browser. Oops, did I make a mistake? Did I make a mistake? No material widget found. Oops. Let me just do restart. Hot restart, okay. Perfect. Up. Let me see. And backup code as well. Should be fine. Okay, let me restart it again just to be sure. So just do WR. I'm just going to relaunch the web server again. Sorry for that. Okay, there we go. So that's refreshed. I'm just going to reload it here. Just refresh the browser. Hopefully it works this time. Okay, there we go. So as you can see, this is the completed app. So it initially has a list of words. Once we start scrolling, as you can see, we're just scrolling down. And it's creating a new list every time and opening up a new state of our random word state class. And that's all the app is. There you go. So now we've completed it. So just check our progress. There you go. We got a tick. We completed everything. And yeah, that's the lab for today. So moving on to Fahim.
All right, so let's get started with the second lab for today, which is, sorry, Qwiklabs.com and the Flutter Development Quest. This would be lab 3. And this is the material components for Flutter Basics lab. So in this, we're going to learn a little bit more about creating a login page for an app called Shrine, which will have e-commerce. It's an e-commerce app which will have like clothing and home goods, and we can customize components and learn more about text boxes, how to obscure passwords, and and the usual stuff, and how to display a list grid view that will list down all the items on the page, and once you log in, and so on. So to get started, we will, the setup. So we'll need to start the lab and say I'm not a robot. Traffic lights. Okay, so this would need a subscription. You will need to, as Vishan mentioned, there'll be a video that'll be put up, and you'll need to follow that to get a subscription. And let's start. Okay, so we need the first link, that is the IDE, and we'll put that in a new browser. Start an IDE, and this shows up here. And let's split screen so you all can see both things happening simultaneously. All right, and now we'll need the starter app. So to get the starter app, we'll do something called cloning from a GitHub repository. And GitHub is basically it's basically a version control and storage platform and code storage platform. And it allows us to access different saved versions of our project and download or clone files, as they would call it. So you clone the files from different folders that they call repositories from GitHub. And here we're going to clone a repository directly from this link, and we're going to get the code in this. So if I click on the hamburger icon and say, oh, sorry, the Explorer icon. So this is the Explorer icon. Oh, I'm sorry. Just give me one sec. Yeah, sorry, here. So the source control, this is the icon that you'll have to select, and you'll say clone repository, clone from GitHub, and we can paste this link. And now, as they've mentioned, we can store this in the home/IDE dev folder, and that'll automatically open up for you. I didn't have to do anything here; it just automatically opened up. So you or anyone following at home would also probably see the same. And yeah, let's open the folder and save. Open. Okay, so now here is where all the assets and all the files that Flutter automatically creates exist. Now we can access most of our code in the lib folder, which will have our app, home, login, and main. In this case, there are multiple dot files because it's an application that's using multiple different files. And I don't know why it's flagging me for so many errors though. Okay. I'm sorry if you all can hear that. Just give me one sec. Let me. Okay. I'm not sure why there's so many errors. Let me restart the IDE and import it again. I need the IDE link. Okay. Okay, let's just say get packages, recommended settings. Okay, that seemed to fix it. All right. And yeah, this is done. The Visual Components Solver app is designed to be run and tested as mobile app. Right. So now we can see, we'll be able to see a preview of this. So we need terminal and application menu. Okay, new terminal, fine. And then it shows up here. We can open the drive. We can open the folder that's required. So this is cd is a command that opens up the folder from terminal, and just copy and pasting it would open up this code in the terminal. And we need to enable something called enable. We need to have just a command here that says enable web to have our Flutter application link to the web, and so we can have online features for it. Enable web, enabling to true, and we need to do Flutter create. So Flutter create to refresh the application again. And it's edited the Android files and the test and the web files. And there's something wrong with the test file again. It's just 2 errors. Okay. Let's add to dependencies. Okay, this is weird. Hopefully this is not an issue. All right, Flutter create is done. Now run the starter app. So to run this, we'll go to the terminal and we will say FWR. It's waiting for connection. So this is connecting to a live the web server, and opening up this view in our debug mode. So we need to copy the second link, which is here, and open it up on a new tab. Yeah, it's loading. So it should show up here in a minute. This has never happened before. It's been loading for, yeah, there we go. Finally. So this loads up the template code that we have from GitHub to just put up an image and the name of our app. Right? Now, using this, we will now create a login screen, which will have a username, password, and a few buttons. So let's start with that. You can open up library, login. So this will be wherever our login page is being edited. And let's collapse this. Let's make it smaller. Okay. So here we can see everything that's being imported. So all these import statements usually come over the top of all the code, towards the top of all the code. And this is importing material.dart. This is a package that handles all the UI and all the design elements of our Flutter application. Okay, so this is a login page, and Vishan explained the states already, and we already know what a class, what a state and stateful and a stateless widget is. So we also have a build function here that's going to build our entire app. So this is the main build function that's going to be called, and all of these widgets are going to be rendered on the application here that we're going to see in a bit. So text field widgets, and let's begin with text field widgets. All right, trivial text fields greatly enhanced to improve the brown fix. Okay. All right, list view. So in a list view now we will arrange two different text boxes, which one of them will be the username and the other one will be the password. And we'll add this under the to do. Add text field widgets. So that should be here. Okay. So name, line 45. All right. Decoration. Okay. So the decoration would set the input field to either look like, look like whatever you want it to look like. So this would be, this would have a different set of parameters with like a label text. For in this instance, it says username. So in the background of this text box, you can see the words. Before you start typing in a text box, you have your username or like a title for the text box mentioned. So this is how you would see it show up. Filled obscure text. So another thing in the text field for the password is that we have something called an obscure text. This would put stars in places of your characters so that your password is is hidden. And let's save our changes. Control S and press the reload key, which is R. So let's press R. Let's type R here, restart it, and we'll refresh this page. And hopefully we should be able to see two text boxes like this. There we go. So as you can see, now you notice a slight change in the color when we hover over the username, and even like it's the same thing in the password as well. Username. This is the title of the text box that's been set with the label text, and the obscure text, as we can test that out here. So the username, I can say Fahim, which is my name, and password, I'll just put in a random few letters, and this would be blacked out. So sort of dots or asterisk or whatever character that you want to specify, but we'll get into that later. Next, let's add buttons. But before that, okay, so the features of the text field. And yeah, exactly. So the decoration field can specify an input decoration value. And we have touch feedback. So whatever I mentioned here, whenever you hover over your text field, you have touch feedback, which will give us a different shade of our text field. Yeah, special features. All right, that's okay. You can find the documentation linked in the Qwiklabs lab, and it's more or less very easy to do, very easy to learn. Add buttons. So we'll add the cancel and next buttons, right? It's called a flat button. There's two kinds of buttons. So flat button and raised button. We will be using a flat button if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so we'll be using a flat button. Actually, and a raise button. All right, cool. So a flat button is going to be flush with the UI. So in the background, you won't see any protruding button. You'll just see it flush with the background of the screen. And the raise button will look like a physical button that you can touch. So let's do that and add the button bar. Let's do this. Button bar to here, to this. Yeah, so as you can see, the raise button class is actually deprecated, and it's in the older versions of Flutter, and they don't use this anymore, and they use an elevated button and even flat button is deprecated. So they're asking us to use text button instead. For now, we'll leave this, and as you can see, the onPressed functions here are defined inside the button widgets. So here you can define anything that your onPressed, whatever your button is supposed to do when you press the button, when you click on it, and you can define the functions here to navigate to the new page or to check your input fields, and whatever really that the function can do in Dart. Let's move on. Okay, let's load this actually. So let's load it and reload. So restart it and we can refresh this page. And yeah, these buttons are now added. This was a flat button. As I said earlier, this is flush with the UI in the background. And this button is a raised button, which is obviously like raised against the background. Let's move on. The button bar. So again, let's explain the button bar as well. So this is essentially, it's self-explanatory. It's in the name. It's essentially a bar with two buttons. All the buttons are lined up in one place. So you can just add it easily in this, in the button bar. Another way to do this would be to add the widgets next to each other. So you can have a row, a row widget, okay, and you can have the buttons show up on the right side of the row widget as the children of that widget. The button theme. So the button theme is more about the colors and the positioning and padding and stuff is set according to button theme. And yeah, so we'll probably learn that later. Ink ripple animation, again, yeah, so the ink ripple animation is this. So once we hover over it, we see our mouse cursor changes and we can see the background also changing a bit. Okay, so text editing controllers. So adding controllers is the word controllers here. It means anything that that handles an input from the user. So when, say, for example, we add our names here. So I say Fahim, I enter a password 123 or something, and when I click on next, an event handler or a controller can help us take this input and do something with it. Editing controllers. So this will store the current values. Let's see where we need to add it. Text editing controllers. Huh. Oh, this is on the login page. Let's try to find this. Text editing controllers. Add buttons, clear text fields, elevation. Interesting, they don't have the comment mentioned there, so I will add it manually. The login page. Oh, there it is. Sorry, my bad. So we need to add the controllers and initialize them when the class is loaded, when the stateful class is loaded. And locate, add a controller, and we're going to set it to this. Actually, just copy the entire thing and add a controller. Okay, the first text field. This is the first text field, and we're going to add controller underscore username controller. That's the first text field. It's going to handle our username input from the user. And the password controller, similarly, we're going to add in the text field here, we're going to say controller is password controller. But yeah, it's an underscore. So according to convention, if you add an underscore, you can see all your local variables. And this is what's easier to use. So if you're lost and if you have a list of all similar words, for example, as I just typed password, I wasn't able to find my my local variable defined above. And in this case, it's here, but for an easier way to search for it, you can just type in an underscore and you get all your local variables. This is a convention used in Dart and Flutter as well. So you can say password controller. And we can edit the onPressed functions now. So when an input is given, the button would do something. And because of cancel, we can just clear it. So clear the text fields. Let's see where that is. Here. So the cancel button replace it with this. And login dot dot. So let's see what this is doing now. Save it, refresh, and go back, reload. So when I enter my username here and my password, if I press cancel, it's deleted. So all the input fields, according to this function, the onPressed function, it's going to remove anything or clear the input fields using the username controller and the password controller. Okay, to dismiss view, now we're going to move on to pop or remove this page. Okay, so we're going to do a navigation between two pages, right? So, okay, rest of the Shrine app. So now we're going to have navigation in our app. So between this login page and other pages. So once you log in, you will have to show the main home page of the application. So that's what we'll be working on. To show the page, so navigator.pop context. Let's copy this, show the next page, and paste it here. All right, and save a login file at the point. Yeah, this is just showing you how the file is supposed to look like, and since we're following it step by step, we shouldn't have a problem. And now save this. Just open up the home page file and resize to avoid bottom inside. Okay. Turn scaffold lines 24 to 31 and 24 to 31. Okay. Turn constant scaffold. They already have it. Okay, center text. You did it. And yeah, the only thing we'll have to do here is change this value. So we have all the other code mentioned here. Let's copy and paste this and remove the constant to have a dynamic scaffold. And what is the size? Okay. Right. So this would just resize to avoid bottom insert. So this is going to change the page directly, or sorry, dynamically, in case there's any resizing in the aspect ratio, or just so that it looks aesthetically pleasing. So let's reload this and go back to the app. So if I put in some name and 1, 2, 3, if I click next, I get the you did it. Here that's set by this. So literally all we're loading right now is a scaffold with the body that is in the center of the screen. The child is the text that says you did it, and we can see that show up here. Okay. Home.dart, you click on the next button and you see the you did it. Cool. At the top app bar. Right now, next, you did it. Okay. Right. So now you notice how we can't go back or forward. You can't navigate right now to any other place. We have the screen that says you did it, and if you're happy with this, I guess you did it. Celebrate. But we need to add more functionality to our application. So let's start with that. And once top bar is a navigation bar. Yeah. So usually the practice is that there's a navigation bar on the top of your screen, so you can see like what page you're on in the middle, navigating backwards with a back button, like something like your browser UI, So you have a back button on the top left, and you have your hamburger icon on the top right, and so on. So we'll try to do something like a basic app bar using the app bar widget. And let's do that inside the scaffold right now. So let's add this code. App bar. If you don't have that already, yeah, we have to add the app bar. Let's do that. And yeah, so we should be able to see if I refresh, you should be able to see a blue bar like this on top. If I click next, yeah. There we go. So now once the user logs in and enters their credentials, you can see this is our home page and we have a blue bar on top. So we can see our app getting some structure, right? And now let's add the buttons. So title, yeah, we're gonna add the title as well. App bar, so it should be inside this. And once I save and refresh, come back here, you should get a title like this. There we go. Okay, so button next to the title. So as I said earlier, we have a navigation button on the top left or the top right, or even the menu button on the top left in case, for this instance, because the user is logging in and going to the home screen, you don't really need a back button here. So this is going to be a hamburger icon that shows us the menu. And let's get on with the code for that. Actions, yes. Okay, so there's a lot of documentation for icon buttons, material icons, everything that you can see on the Qwiklabs, a Qwiklabs quest. Okay, home.dart, leading field. Okay, so the leading, there's a leading and a trailing space. So in this leading space, we can add the menu. So on pressed, we can print this. So let's just do this. Copy all of that. Add buttons and title. That should come here inside the app bar. So the leading property for this app bar would make the icon button show up on the left side. So the leading would be the first few elements that you see, and the icon is setting it to the menu. So this is going to be a hamburger icon, and on clicking this, we'll see a menu button show up in the print statement. So let's refresh. Let's go back to this, refresh. All right, go next, and we can see the 3 lines showing up. This is our hamburger icon that will show us the menu. And it's supposed to print it somewhere. Where is it printing it? Menu button. Okay, the print is not showing up, but I think it's because it's in the console, the debug console. No. All right, but essentially this is the same thing. So once you press it, there would be some output, and we've done that in the previous part as well, where we designed the login screen with the cancel and the home buttons. So just let it load. Yeah, so in the cancel and the next buttons, we've already seen the on-pressed functionality. So once you click on it, it would do something. So again, to show you, if I press cancel, it clears all the text fields. Let's go back. Yeah, it's also known as the hamburger, as I mentioned. So let's add some icons to, let's add some actions to our application here. And this would be inside the app bar. So, the icon button, this is going to be a search button and a filter button. App bar. Add trailing. So they have a comment here that says add trailing. Do they? Is it there? Okay, I probably removed it. So let's just add it to the app bar. Actions, widget, on pressed, filter button, on pressed, search button. So essentially what we're doing here is we're adding 2 different buttons of icon button. That's one of them is a search button and one of them is a filter. And the icons are also set to search and tune. In this case, this is an icons pack that is imported with the materials UI import statement that I showed you earlier. And we can just get all the icons in this pack and display it on our application. We can also use custom icons, obviously. So we can import a few from whatever website or whatever package that we have, and we can get the application to show whatever icons we want to. So we can see, okay, the filter icon is hidden behind the debug banner, but essentially like it's just adding it, right? So I think you can see it. It's very, the edges are visible. But yeah, that's the search and that's the filter icon for you. Hot reload, and yeah, you can see it better on the screen. So you can see there's a search icon and there's a filter icon as well. Now let's make the card collection. So a card is basically a widget that's in the form of a square or a rectangle. You can give it sizes and shapes, and this is going to be showing us a list of all the items that we have on display in our application. So multiple cards are present on the screen. They're grouped together in the form of a collection, right? So we can even add one card in the middle of the screen here, but that defeats the purpose, right? We want our application to have a list of all the items available for purchase. In this case, we would have boxes here, right? And they would show us a list of all the items available for purchase. So let's do that. Above the build function, remember the functions underscore private. Right, so let's replace it with this code. Let's copy it all. And let's go to, okay, what file is this in again? Make a collection of cards. It should be on the home screen, and it's here. So we'll remove this and paste. So here, if you have a collection, okay, let's go into the explanation of this now. So the list is being created, which is of type card. So anything within the angular brackets that you see, this would show what type of a list is being created. And since this is an underscore before this function, it's as they mentioned here, this is functions are private. So any underscore functions are private, and this function accepts an integer of a count variable that's an integer. Within this, you have another list. You're passing the list that you're actually generating the list, right? So you're giving it a name here that says list of cards, right? And this is the return type. So this function is going to return a list of cards. A list of generate is a function that would generate the list of the items that we're going to display now. And count is the first parameter of this function. So this would be the integer. So the number of lists, the number of cards that are going to be displayed. And for each index, we're going to make a card with these properties, right? And this card will have a clip behavior of anti-alias. A child would be, so the child within the card would be a column with all of these values. So this would be a cross alignment. This is setting the alignment of the column, which would, I think this is the center alignment. So this will position all the, this will position all the components of that card in the middle. The widget would have, the children would be of the type widget, and you would have the aspect ratio set to this. Interesting. I'm not sure why they're using a children here to define aspect ratio. All right, the widget inside, sorry. So the child inside the card, right? This would have a certain set of values, and the title and secondary text would be displayed within that card this way. So yeah, this is the aspect ratio of that element, and the child, this is the image that you would be providing it. So this is in the assets folder. If you have to give any images of your choice, and this is how you would give your icons as well. So you would have an icons, you would have your icons folder somewhere here. So in this case, it's your assets folder, and in this you would have a list of all your assets that you're using in your application. Here it's the diamond.png. You would have this. Yeah. Right now this is a PNG, so you can see it like it's like that. It isn't look very good, but once we display it on the application, we would see it better. This is giving it a padding. So the padding is literally a spacing between the margins of the box that is going to be displayed in, and these are values in pixels. So LTRB, so this is left, top, right, and bottom. So left, it's getting a value of 16, top of 12, right of 16, and bottom of 8. And there's going to be a child within that padding. So within that is what we're going to is where we're going to display all of our important information, such as right now for placeholding, we have a few values, the text and the size box, right? Okay, everything containers body with this new code. Right, so the body, let me try to find where the body is. Something generated cards to grid views children field. Grid views, no, grid view is here, at the bottom, if I'm not mistaken. Gridview.count. So where is the body going to be? Return scaffold, app bar. Body, yes, here. So this is what we need to replace. Essentially, what we're doing is replacing this you did it with the cards function that we have here that we've created earlier. Let's do that. The body is here, so it starts and ends there. Let's paste that, save it, refresh, and go back to this. It should show up like that. Next. There we go. Looks pretty clean as of now. And for now, as you can see, it's creating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. 10 cards based on the input value we give it in the function that we pass to it. So this, the children of this of the body of the application or of the home page are being created using this function we created on top here. This function. Sorry. This function. So it's returning cards, which is of type list of cards. Let's try to change something here and see. Yeah, let's try to change the number of cards. So let's say I put it as 3. Right. So save this, refresh, and let's go back, reload. Next. And now it just generates 3 cards for you. It's pretty cool to have different functions, to generate your list automatically. Because in the case that you have a dynamically loading function here, or you're getting your cards info from a database or from something that updates constantly, you can have a dynamic function that handles that for you, and it will create the number of cards needed as required, and not have like 100 cards listed there without without any reason. So let's add the product data. This I need to import the home.dart file, and let's import that below this. Okay, right, cool. And then the build update. So we need to update this. Let's see what the changes are. So in the build grid cards function, we'll have a list repository. So we're going to load our product images from a repository. As I mentioned earlier, if we have something dynamically changing, so in this case, it's a product repository. If this is changing, we don't have a way to like actually figure out how many cards we need, right? So if we have a parameterized function like this, we can give it the number of cards that are needed, and we can load them dynamically. I'll just copy this entire thing and replace it and explain what it's doing as we go. So it's product equals null is empty. So if a product doesn't exist, it's going to return a card that's empty, which would be just a blank card as a placeholder in its place. And theme, we're setting the theme basically here to the theme of the context. And the context here is the application's theme, and it's the color scheme of the application itself. Number format is just setting the format of the numbers. Clip behavior, it's gonna the clip behavior is gonna position that child or that widget in a particular way. So the anti-alias here is going to do something different to the placement of the widget. And the cross-axis alignment, this is almost always used everywhere. So this cross-axis alignment clause This holds like all the values you need to position your arguments, or sorry, to position your widgets in a certain place. Right. Again, the aspect ratio is set. Your child is given an image.asset. So the image.asset would have the first parameter for this would be the sorry the URL of the image, and wherever the package. Okay, so the package, right, and it has some other parameters such as the package and the fit and so on. So the package will be product.asset package. It's specifying where the image is being taken from, and the box fit. This will specify the how the image would look placed inside that card. The expanded class, basically, it's like a placeholder. It's like creating the borders or the margins of your image, and you can give it a padding. You can give it all these custom properties. Like if someone has done HTML coding before, or maybe or CSS, you would know. You'd be very familiar with terms like padding or alignment and stuff like that. So this would add all of those changes, and uh, we can replace this code with what we copied. Okay. The build. Okay, build context before you try to complete. The body now we'll have to change it to context. Okay. Right. So the context is essentially as I said, it's the application itself. So the context is like saying, it's like making an object or passing an object of that application and sending it to this function here. Now this function doesn't have an integer anymore. It's taking the context itself. So it's taking the build context, right? And it's passing that and compare and dynamically it's going to generate a few. It's going to generate the cards as needed. So the grid view.count is there. Cross-axis count is fine. This would specify how many values you want. So right now we can see 2 side by side. So this, if I change it to 3, right? And oh yeah. So now we won't see the changes right now, but I'll replace this and come back to that. Axis, edge, insets. Okay, children, and let's place, save. Can I format this? It looks a little ugly at the moment. Yeah, format document. So now this is all indented. It looks neat. Let's refresh and reload. If I click next, we can see all these items and and their images, including the text here and the price. All of it is being loaded, and it looks very clean. We can also, since it's the bigger screen right now, let's try to change this to 3 items, and let's refresh. Click next. We can see 3 items on each line. It's very simple to edit UI, and it's very simple to change the number of rows and columns you have in your display here with the grid view widget. Let's leave it at 3 for now because it looks pretty clean on this bigger browser. Since they are viewing it on the phone kind of a template, they have obviously a smaller screen, so they have 2 showing up there. And yeah, I think let's check my progress. There we go. So essentially, that's your application. That's your homepage. Very simple UI, a very simple layout to see everything. And this probably goes on for There's a lot of images that they have in the repository, so you can see all of these here. And the grid view is what we learned today. A grid view and creating a function inside your Dart file. So grid views can be used to create cards like this and display it on your home screen or wherever needed, and it's pretty cool. It's very easy to alter, it's very easy to change and get results immediately. All right, so I think that's it for my lab. And Vishan, if you can come back online.
Okay. Just...
Yep.
You can hear me? Yep.
Yep, can hear you.
Yep.
So that's about it for our session. Any questions? Do we have any questions? My throat is dry.
The third lab's pretty long.
Okay, I think so far no questions. We haven't had any running questions earlier either. But yeah, guys, if you actually have any questions after watching this session, after watching the recording of this session, feel free to ask us the questions on our Instagram page or on the LinkedIn page, even our Twitter. I think we have our Twitter live stream as well happening right now, so you can you can ask us questions there as well. So we'll be free to we'll be very happy to answer you all there.
Yeah, and the Teams group is there as well, so I think it's fine if they make a discussion.
Yeah. Yep. Ask us questions, guys. Ask us questions. All right. And since I think our chat is pretty dry at the moment, the YouTube channel is pretty empty, I would say. Don't have too many participants live right now. So I guess we'll wait for questions that we'll get after the live stream. All right. You can find the links here. These are the links if you can quickly screen grab them if needed. I'm going to keep them up for a bit.
We'll put the slides on our Teams group.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we'll do that as well. So we'll put the slides up on our Teams
channel. The slides are already there, so if anyone who needs it.
So the quest is linked above, and then we have our Flutter tutorial. We also have the packages linked here. This was in a previous PowerPoint presentation as well. And the link to our previous video is both in our description and in our in the last slide. And I think that's it. Let's wrap it up. All right. Is that okay, Vishan? You got anything to add?
No, nothing else to say. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So I think that's it. That's been your second session in the Flutter Development series. And this has been Fahim with Vishan from the GDSC in Heriot-Watt University. I'm hoping to join all of you again in Saturday's session for session 3, where we'll go through another few labs and another few basics in Flutter tutorials. All right. Thank you, guys. See you.
Thank you, everyone.
Subscribe and follow us on our Instagram pages and our Twitter accounts, and we'll keep you posted with any update or any change in schedule. But more or less, we would follow the same thing. Yep. See you. Thanks.
I see you guys. Take care.